All right, Panther Lair, let's talk about the Pittsburgh Panthers victory over the Duke Blue Devils this past Saturday. Now, the last video series that I just did detailed out some of the adjustments that Pitt made against Kyle Filipowski this time around. This time, I want to talk about something they did differently on offense and one of the adjustments they made. Now, after the game, the first time these two teams met in my breakdown, I talked about how when Pitt would get into zoom action, that Duke would flip that, and they'd also at times sag off of some of that action with one of the defenders so they wouldn't get knocked out, that being one of the help defenders, not the most trailing defender coming from that zoom action. Those defenders generally would switch. So again, I'll probably include a link there so you can go back and take a look at that. But I wanted to talk about one of the things Pitt did here because I think they took advantage of that sagging a defender in this matchup. And we're going to look at two sequences here, and it's going to be a pretty important one here for the Pittsburgh Panthers. So let's play it out. So Pitt is going to go into what they kind of set up to be this empty side ball screen. Pitt went back to this for like the first time, I think, since November. They started using these empty corner ball screens. Pretty effective. They opened the game with one. They opened the second half with one. So this looks like it might be it. So Stewart ends up sagging off completely on this action. He's thinking, okay, well, I got to maybe account for Jalen Lowe to drive here. Also, if Hinson curls this, I need to be back to defend it. But what ends up happening, because he sags so far off of this and because Guillermo sets a really good screen, is this ends up being a wide open three-pointer for Blake Hinson. He had already made 5 at this point. This ended up being his 6th. And again, so you'll see Stewart sagged so far off of this thinking maybe this is a curl, maybe something's going to the basket. I mean, that's the benefit of attacking the rim so much as Pitt did in this game, is that the defense are going to be starting to have to account for that more and more. Big time trail by Hinson's defender makes a 6-3. This is a little bit later in the second half. They run this on the other side. Again, this could have been that empty side ball screen. Instead, Guillermo kind of like rejects setting one, immediately sets one for Hinson. Ryan Young does a better job of not sagging off completely here, but he still needs to account for like a driving low. He needs to account for a curling Hinson. And so you'll see but he still sags. Now, a much better job recognizing this action. Guillermo doesn't really hold the screen as long as he could, so that doesn't allow this play to be available here, although you never know if Hinson's just going to hit this regardless. Filipowski is forced to try to wall off at the rim. There's a lot of options here. Like, Lowe is left-handed. I don't know. Maybe this is a bullet pass here, and Austin ends up getting a dunk. He could try to go high here. Maybe Austin can turn and pin in Proctor, and this ends up being a 3 in the corner. So I really like this set. I think there's a lot of things that Pitt could do with this, but this ends up being a kickback out to Guillermo, who does miss this 3. But I think the point being is that Pitt recognized the fact that Duke was going to sag off of some of those screen away options, and they went back to the film room and put these two things in because they definitely were not doing these empty side ball screens like within the last month. So this was designed for them to take advantage of the fact that Duke was going to sag off these options or actions. So a really good job by Pitt here, and it pretty much paid off for them as Pitt came away with the road victory.